Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hank Philippi Ryan, and this is First Chapter Fun. I think I'm live here on Facebook. It looks like I am, and I'm attempting now, as always, to go live on Instagram. We will see how this works, if it's going to let me do it. Yes, it is checking the connection on Instagram. Is this not fun? And it says, I am live on Instagram. How about that? Readers and First Chapter Funners, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan. I'm here live on Instagram and live on Facebook, and it seems to be working. And here is Cat Law on Instagram. That's wonderful. Great to see you, Cat Law. And I'm not seeing any comments on Facebook yet. And that is what always happens. It lets me know, hello, Hannah is here this morning, and Ross and Diane is here on Instagram. That's wonderful. I see that there are people on Facebook, but it is not showing me the comments yet. So if it's going to happen, maybe that'll happen. If not, this is going to be just another fun day on First Chapter Fun where I cannot see the comments. Next time, Hannah will teach me how to go to the video, and I can watch the video and watch it all separately. But right now, I'm not seeing comments. If someone could send me a comment, that would be great. I'm trying to see if I can fix it. Okay, I can't fix it. We're going to go without the comments for me here on Facebook, but you can see the comments on Facebook. And welcome to episode 127 of First Chapter Fun, and we are thrilled to be here today. It is 12:30 Eastern, and I am here in Boston. I'm Hank Philippi Ryan, and welcoming you to this episode of First Chapter Fun. It is never a dull moment here on First Chapter Fun. I can see you right here on Instagram, but I cannot see your comments on Facebook, but I know you are there, and I will look at them as soon as our wonderful event today is over. And you just saw my darling husband in the background on Facebook. Maybe we'll have him make a guest appearance, a planned one someday. So welcome to First Chapter Fun. I'm Hank Philippi Ryan, and as I said, this is episode number 127 of First Chapter Fun. Hannah's saying she'll keep an eye on the Facebook comments for me. Thank you. Lit Chick Forever is here on Instagram, and Cynthia. So glad to see you all. Let me quickly say we have an awesomely terrific book today, The Last Flight by Julie Clark, and she is sensational, and this book is amazingly good. I mean, completely what they mean by unputdownable. Who was the first person to say unputdownable? Do you remember that? And I remember it was kind of controversial because it's not really a word, unputdownable, but we do know what it means, right? Instantly. And Lynn is saying, thank you for her copy of Trust Me. Yes, we had a big Hannah Mary McKinnon and I. Hannah Mary McKinnon, you know her, my fabulous partner in fictional crime, who started First Chapter Fun 126 episodes ago, if you can believe it, and this is episode number 127. We have giveaways from time to time, and Lynn was one of the people who won a copy of my book, Trust Me, and I hope you, crossing fingers, you love it. And the other winners, we're pleased to be able to send you books as well. So you never know what wonderful thing is about to happen here at First Chapter Fun, but you always know that every Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, Hannah Mary McKinnon and I will read you the first chapter of a wonderful new book, and everything is on video. So if you miss one, hi Alpes, and if you miss one, if you miss an episode, you always know you can come back and go through the cover pictures and see what tempts you during the day or whenever you need to have a tiny little first chapter to taste. And that is what we are here for. The world domination of your to-be-read piles. We want them to go up and up and up. So welcome. If something happens here on Instagram or here on Facebook, we will do it over. Don't worry, it's probably us and probably not you. There's always technology that we're battling. And we will do it again and put it in the video section here on Facebook and in IGTV here on Instagram. So you will always be able to have your first chapter library available at your beck and call to have a wonderful new first chapter. Haven't we been through a lot, you all? Haven't we been through a lot since this began in March? We have really seen the world change, and we have seen our lives change. And Hannah and I really want First Chapter Fun to be this little corner of safety and reading and community and caring. And we're so pleased to see all of you here today. I see Glennie is here, and KCDVS on Instagram. I'm waving back to you all. Welcome, welcome on Facebook. I cannot see your comments, so I am going to look at that today as a little treat. When this is over, I will go back and see what you have to say today. So let me tell you a little bit about a book. Our book today is the instant New York Times bestseller, The Last Flight by Julie Clark. Can you imagine how much fun it would be to have a book come out and then get the phone call from your editor saying you are an instant New York Times bestseller? I mean, that is just, you know, you work and work and work by yourself for a year or longer, and then at some point the book comes out and you cross your fingers like crazy that people will love it and care about it, and then you get the call, instant New York Times bestseller. That means the first week it is for sale. The first week it is on sale to the public. It makes the New York Times bestseller list, and woo, that is a writer's dream come true. And that is exactly what happened to The Last Flight by Julie Clark. And this, you know, I didn't know Julie when I read this book when it first came out, and I mean, I know they always say I could not put it down, and yeah, they say that, but really, you just can't put this book down. It reminds me, though, too, of, you know, I was talking about how much we've been through together here on First Chapter Fun in the, what, 10 months now? Can that be 10 that we've been together? Is it really 10? Is it more like 9? I don't know. Anyway, time goes by. We have no idea what day it is, but we do know when it's Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 Eastern, and that is time for First Chapter Fun. And we, Hannah and I, are trying to be a little touchstone for you, something to look forward to, something to know that we're going to be here for you, and that you will always get the first chapter of a wonderful new book. We're all readers. And that is something that we can really share no matter what craziness is going on in the rest of the world. So, as I said, today, The Last Flight by Julie Clark here on First Chapter Fun. The Last Flight, First Chapter Fun. It's kind of a theme. Yes, Hannah is saying it is 10 months. And that is really really amazing. Lisa on Facebook is saying, yes, she has this one on her TBR. Move it to the top of the stack. You will absolutely love it. But carve out some time for reading it, because this is, as they say in the reviews, propulsive, and that it really is. And so does Catherine. Yeah, smart readers. This is a very good book. And Julie herself is lovely. She's really lovely. She's a teacher and she lives in California. She may have classes today, so she may be coming back and answering your questions later today. Oh, which reminds me, you know, this is the place on Facebook. I will see them soon. This is the place on Facebook for you to leave a question for Julie. This story is about a scheme of switching identities, where two women switch identities at an airport. And I'd love her to talk to us about how much research she did into this and whether this would really work. You kind of have the feeling that it would. And you wonder whether somebody may have done that in the past. So this is the place on Facebook to ask Julie Clark questions about her research and about flying. It's so, you know, I've spent so many years on book tour every time a new book comes out, and going on a plane is so much a part of the celebration of having a new book. So I really miss that. I miss popcorners on JetBlue. I told the JetBlue people that I actually finished my book, The First to Lie, on a JetBlue flight as I was promoting the murder list. And, you know, it's just this air travel and sharing with readers and writers. The new book is so much a part of having a new book. And so this, first chapter fun is sort of like being on book tour, being on book tour every Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. And you don't even have to fasten your seat belts, but you do for the first flight. You do have to fasten your seat belts. I can say this. You do have to fasten your seat belts because this book will make you jump out of your chair or stay in your chair or some metaphor like that. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the fabulous Julie Clark. Julie Clark is the New York Times bestselling author of The Last Flight. Let me have a little sip of water. Anissa is here, and Hannah is saying she wrote a short story about this too. And Catlaw saying, as soon as I finish one, this is the next one I'm starting. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those books that, and you'll hear it in a minute, when you start reading it, you just can't put it down. Anyway, before we were so rudely interrupted by my coughing, Julie Clark is the New York Times bestselling author of The Last Flight. It has earned starred reviews from Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and Library Journal, and the New York Times has called it thoroughly absorbing. Starred reviews from Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and Library Journal. It's been named an Indie Next Pick, a Library Reads Pick, and a Best Book of 2020 by Amazon editors and by Apple Books. Her debut, The Ones We Choose, was published in 2018 and has been optioned for television by Lionsgate. So 2020 was a pretty good year, no matter what else happened for Julie Clark. She is a star. So let me tell you a little bit about The Last Flight, which we read with permission from Julie Clark, the author, and from the publisher Sourcebooks. And it's out in hardcover now, of course, and it is releasing in paperback on May the 4th. But as soon as you hear this, you're going to want to run right out. Not right now, but after I read the first chapter, you're going to run right out and want to add this to your TBR. Rosso Love saying, this is my book club's read this month. We meet tonight. So good. All right, so you'll hear this. And Lisa on Facebook is saying, I'm not a fan of flying, but I'm not a fan of flying, but I do. Yes, I used to be afraid of flying too, but now I'm not. We can talk about that somewhere. I was afraid to read this book, but it's in front of me now. Do not be afraid. If you're afraid of flying, this will not make you more afraid. We should embrace flying. It's not magic, it's physics. And we can talk about that another time. Let me tell you a little bit about The Last Flight. 2 women, 2 flights, 1 chance to disappear. Claire Cook has a perfect life, married to the scion of a political dynasty with a Manhattan townhouse and a staff of 10. Her surroundings are elegant, her days flawlessly choreographed, and her future auspicious. But behind closed doors, nothing is quite as it seems. That perfect husband has a temper that burns as bright as his political career, and he's not above using his staff to track Claire's every move, making sure she's living up to his impossible standards. But what he doesn't know is that Claire has worked for months on a plan to vanish. A chance meeting in an airport bar brings her together with a woman whose circumstances seem equally dire. Together, they make a last-minute decision to switch tickets, Claire taking Eva's flight to Oakland, and Eva traveling to Puerto Rico as Claire. They believe the swap will give each of them the head start they need to begin again somewhere far away. But when the flight to Puerto Rico goes down, Claire realizes it's no longer a head start, but a new life. Cut off, out of options, with the news of her death about to explode in the media, Claire will assume Eva's identity, and along with it, the secrets Eva fought so hard to keep hidden. So, yes, a horrible husband, Hannah. Glennie's saying, love flying. Here's the thing. I mean, we've all seen Strangers on a Train or read it, and we know the crisscross switch and the switching identities. But this takes off in a different direction. And you have to applaud Julie Clark for her brilliant plotting and her brilliant storytelling. Maybe that's one of the things we can ask her in the comments on Facebook, whether she knew the end of this book before she wrote it, or whether it evolved, the story evolved along the way. That'd be fun to know, because it is, well, I don't even want to tell you anything about it. Let me just read you a little bit, the tiny bit of the first chapter and prologue of the last flight on First Chapter Fun. Yes, Cat Law is saying, I love the premise, and Hannah too. Yeah, the premise is amazing. And then again, and again, and again, it is not what you expected. And that is part of the skill of Julie Clark as a writer and as a storyteller. So here's the prologue and first chapter of The Last Flight. Prologue. John F. Kennedy Airport, New York, Tuesday, February 22nd, the day of the crash. Terminal 4 swarms with people, the smell of wet wool and jet fuel thick around me. I wait for her, just inside the sliding glass doors, the frigid winter wind slamming into me whenever they open, and instead force myself to visualize a balmy Puerto Rican breeze laced with the scent of hibiscus and sea salt. The soft, accented Spanish swirling around me like a warm bath, blotting out the person I was before. The air outside rumbles as planes lift into the sky, while inside garbled announcements blare over the loudspeaker. Somewhere behind me, an older woman speaks in sharp staccato Italian. But I don't look away from the curb, my eyes trained on the crowded sidewalk outside the terminal, searching for her, anchoring my belief and my entire future on the fact that she will come. I know her name, what she looks like, and that her flight departs this morning. My advantage, she doesn't know anything about me. I fight down panic that I might have missed her somehow, that she might already be gone, and with her, the opportunity for me to slip out of this life and into a new one. People disappear every day. The man standing in line at Starbucks, buying his last cup of coffee before he gets into his car and drives into a new life, leaving behind a family who will always wonder what happened. Or the woman sitting in the last row of a Greyhound bus, staring out the window as the wind blows strands of her hair across her face, wiping away a history too heavy to carry. You might be shoulder to shoulder with someone living their last moments as themselves and never know it. But very few people actually stop to consider how difficult it is to truly vanish, the level of detail needed to eliminate even the tiniest trace, because there's always something, a small thread, a seed of truth, a mistake. It only takes a tiny pinprick of circumstance to unravel it all. A phone call at the moment of departure, a fender bender 3 blocks before the freeway on-ramp, a canceled flight, a last-minute change of itinerary. Through the plate glass window, fogged with condensation, I see a black town car glide to the curb, and I know it's her, even before the door opens and she steps out. When she does, she doesn't say goodbye to whoever is driving. Instead, she scurries across the pavement and through the sliding doors, so close her pink cashmere sweater brushes against my arm, soft and inviting. Her shoulders are hunched as if waiting for the next blow, the next attack. This is a woman who knows how easily a $50,000 rug can shred the skin from her cheek. I let her pass and take a deep breath, exhaling my tension. She's here. I can begin. I lift the strap of my bag over my shoulder and follow, slipping into the security line directly in front of her, knowing that people on the run only look behind, never ahead. I listen and wait for my opening. She doesn't know it yet, but soon she will become one of the vanished, and I will fade like a whiff of smoke into the sky and disappear. All right, this keeps going. Chapter 1 now. named Claire. Monday, February 21st, the day before the crash. Danielle, I say, entering the small office that sits adjacent to our living room, please let Mr. Cook know I'm going to the gym. She looks up from her computer, and I see her gaze snag on the bruise along the base of my throat, concealed with a thin layer of makeup. I automatically adjust my scarf to cover it, knowing she won't mention it. She never does. We have a meeting at Center Street Literacy at 4, she says. You'll be late again. Danielle keeps track of my calendar and my missteps, and I've pegged her as the one most likely to report when I don't arrive on time to meetings or when I cancel appointments that my husband Rory deems important. If I'm going to run for Senate, we don't have the luxury of making mistakes, Claire. Thank you, Danielle. I can read the calendar as well as you can. Please have my notes from the last meeting uploaded and ready to go. I'll meet you there. As I leave the room, I hear her pick up the phone and my step falters, knowing this might draw attention at a time when I can't afford it. People always ask what it's like being married into the Cook family, a political dynasty second only to the Kennedys. I deflect with information about our foundation, trained to keep my focus on the work instead of the rumors, on our third world literacy and water initiatives, on the inner city mentoring programs, the cancer research. What I can't tell them is that it's a constant battle to find any privacy. Even inside our home, people are there at all hours. Assistants, household staff who cook and clean for us. I have to fight for every spare minute and every square inch to call my own. There is nowhere that's safe from the eyes of Rory's staff, all of them devoted Cook employees. Even after 10 years of marriage, I'm still the interloper, the outsider who needs to be watched. I've learned to make sure there's nothing to see. The gym is one of the few places Danielle doesn't follow, trailing after me with her lists and schedules. It's where I meet Petra, the only friend I have left from my life before Rory, and the only one Rory hasn't forced me to abandon, because as far as Rory knows, Petra doesn't exist. When I arrive at the gym, Petra is already there. I change in the locker room, and when I climb the stairs to the row of treadmills, she's on the landing, taking a clean towel from the stack. Our eyes meet for a moment, and then she looks away as I help myself to a towel. "Are you nervous?" she whispered. "Terrified," I say, turning and walking away. I run for an hour, my eyes on the clock, and when I step into the sauna at exactly 2:30 with a towel wrapped around my body, my muscles ache with exhaustion. The air is thick with steam, and I smile at Petra, who sits alone on the top row, her red face red with heat. "Do you remember Mrs. Morris?" she asks when I sit down next to her. I smile, grateful to think of something from a simpler time. Mrs. Morris was our government teacher in the 12th grade, and Petra almost failed the class. "You studied with me every afternoon for a month," she continues, "when none of the other kids would come near me or Nico. Because of who our father was, you stepped up and made sure I graduated." I turn on the wooden bench to face her. "You make it sound like you and Nico were pariahs. You had friends." Petra shakes her head. "People being nice to you because your father is the Russian version of Al Capone doesn't make them friends." We'd attended an elite school in Pennsylvania, where the children and grandchildren of old money viewed Petra and her brother Nico as a novelty, sidling up to them as if on a dare to see how close they could get, but never letting either of them all the way in. And so we'd formed a trio of outcasts. Petra and Nico made sure no one made fun of my second-hand uniform or the beat-up Honda my mother used to pick me up in, rattling its way to the curb, belching exhaust in its wake. They made sure I didn't eat alone and dragged me to school events I'd have skipped otherwise. They put themselves between me and the other kids, the one who made cruel, cutting remarks about how I was merely a day student on a scholarship, too poor, too common to truly be one of them. Petra and Nico were friends to me at a time when I had none. It felt like fate the day I walked into the gym 2 years ago and saw Petra, an apparition from the past. But I wasn't the same person Petra would remember from high school. Too much had changed. Too much I'd have to explain about my life and what I'd lost along the way. And so I'd kept my face averted, while Petra's stare drilled into me, willing me to look up, to acknowledge her. When my workout was over, I made my way to the locker room, hoping to hide out in the sauna until after Petra had left. But when I entered, she was there, as if that had been our plan all along. Claire Taylor, she'd said. Hearing her say my old name made me smile despite myself. Memories came rushing back, found in the tone and cadence of Petra's voice that still carried a trace of the Russian she spoke at home. In an instant, I felt like my old self, not the persona I'd cultivated over the years as Rory's wife, glossy and unknowable, burying her secrets beneath a hard surface. We'd started slowly, making small talk that quickly turned personal as we caught up on the years since we'd last seen each other. Petra had never married. Instead, she drifted through life, supported by her brother, who now ran the family organization. "And you," she said, gesturing toward my left hand, "you're married?" I studied her through the steam, surprised she didn't know. "I married Rory Cook," I said. "Impressive," Petra said. I looked away, waiting for her to ask what people always asked. What really happened to Maggie Moretti, the name that will forever be linked to my husband's, the girl who'd catapulted from anonymity to infamy, simply because, long ago, she'd once loved Rory. But Petra just leaned back on her bench and said, "I saw that interview he did with Kate Lane on CNN. The work he's done with the foundation is remarkable." Rory is very passionate. A response that conveyed truth, if anyone cared to dig deeper. "How are your mom and sister? Violet must be done with college by now." I'd been dreading that question. Even after so many years, the loss of them was still sharp. They died in a car accident 14 years ago. Violet had just turned 11. I kept my explanation brief. A rainy Friday night, a drunk driver who ran a stop sign, a collision in which they both died instantly. "Oh, Claire," Petra had said. She didn't offer platitudes or force me to rehash things. Instead, she sat with me, letting the silence hold my grief, knowing there was nothing that could be said to make it hurt less. It became our routine to meet in the same sauna every day after our workouts. Petra understood that because of who her family was, we couldn't be seen talking in public. Even before we knew what I was eventually going to do, we'd been cautious, rarely communicating by phone and never by email. But in the sauna, we resurrected our friendship, rebuilding the trust we used to share, remembering the alliance that had gotten us both through high school. It didn't take long for Petra to also see what I was hiding. "You need to leave him, you know," she'd said one afternoon several months after we'd first met. She was looking at a bruise on my upper left arm, the remnant of an argument Rory and I'd had 2 nights earlier. Despite my efforts to hide the evidence, a towel pulled higher around my chest, hung around my neck, or draped across my shoulders, Petra had silently watched the progression of Rory's rage across my skin. "That's not the first one of those I've seen on you." I covered the bruise with my towel, not wanting her pity. "I tried to leave once, about 5 years ago. I believed it was possible to leave my marriage. I'd prepared myself for a fight, knowing it would be messy and expensive, but I'd use his abuse as leverage. Give me what I want, and I'll stay silent about the kind of man you are." But it hadn't happened that way at all. Turns out the woman I'd confided in, who tried to help me, was married to an old fraternity brother of Rory's. And when Rory showed up, Her husband opened the door and let him in, old boying himself right alongside Rory, secret handshake and all. Rory told them I was struggling with depression and working with a psychiatrist, and that maybe it was time for something inpatient. He was going to have you committed? He was letting me know things could get a lot worse. I didn't tell Petra the rest, like how when we'd gotten home he'd shoved me so hard into the marble counter in our kitchen I'd cracked 2 ribs. Your selfishness astonishes me, that you'd be willing to destroy all I've worked so hard to build, my mother's legacy, because we argue. All couples argue, Claire. He gestured around the room to the high-end appliances, the expensive countertops, and said, "Look around you. What more could you possibly want? No one is going to feel sorry for you. No one will even believe you." Which was true. People wanted Rory to be who they thought he was, the charismatic son of the progressive and beloved Senator Marjorie Cook. I could never tell anyone what he did to me because no matter what I'd say or how loudly I'd say it, my words would be buried beneath the love everyone felt for Marjorie Cook's only child. People will never see what I see, I finally said to Petra. You really believe that? Do you think if Carolyn Bessette came forward accusing JFK Jr. of hitting her, the country would have rushed to support her? Petra's eyes widened. Are you kidding me? This is the Me Too era. I think people would be falling all over themselves to believe her. They'd probably create new Fox and CNN shows just to talk about it. I gave a hollow laugh. In a perfect world, I'd hold Rory accountable. But I don't have it in me to take on a fight like that, one that would go on for years, that would seep into every corner of my life and tarnish anything good that might come afterward. I just want to be free of it, of him. To speak out against Rory would be like stepping into an abyss and trusting that I'd be caught by the generosity and kindness of others. And I'd lived too many years with people happily watching me free fall if it meant they could be close to Rory. In this world, money and power were equivalent to immunity. I took a long breath and felt the steam reach down into my deepest corners. If I left him, I'd have to do it in a way where he could never find me. Look what happened to Maggie Moretti. The edges of Petra's face were blurry through the steam that billowed between us, but I could see her gaze sharpen. Do you think he had something to do with that? I don't know what to believe anymore, I'd answered. Over the last year, Petra and I assembled a plan choreographing my disappearance more carefully than a ballet. A sequence of events so perfectly timed there could be no room for error. And now I sit, hours away from executing it. The book goes on, but I am not going to. Can you believe how good that is? Have you ever had a book draw you in that much? This is such a good book. The Last Flight by Julie Clark. Hannah saying, oh, I loathe him, ugh, ugh, ugh. Georgina Cross is here. We will be reading her book soon. Welcome you all. Ella is reading a book is here. Carol Hild is here. Yes. Isn't this, she says, excellent, excellent, excellent. The Lit Chick Forever says, sounds so good. And Diane says, oh boy. And I can't wait to hear what you're saying on Facebook because yes, this is a terrific, book. The Last Flight by Julie Clark. And she will come to Facebook later after her class, she's teaching today, and look at all of your comments and answer all your questions. And I know you'll have a lot of them, especially to know what she's writing next and whether she knew about the ending of the book before she got there and how she came up with this idea. Hannah is telling me everyone on Facebook is loving it. Yes, yes, yes. I loved it too. So we are so pleased, Hannah and I, to bring you The Last Flight by Julie Clark, which is available now from Sourcebooks. And from that opening, you can tell what a propulsive and fantastic book this is, The Last Flight by Julie Clark. Why do I want to keep saying The Last Clark by Julie Flight? That is just a different book altogether. Last Flight by Julie Clark, an instant New York Times bestseller. I hope you love it. I totally did. Now, coming up next week on First Chapter Fun, and as we say, and now for something completely different, another book that will have you turning the pages as fast as you possibly can, but laughing all the way, by Kristen Bear O'Keefe. Agatha Arch is afraid of everything. Let me get you a better picture of this. Why won't this work? There we go. I want Kristen Bear's, and her full name is Kristen Bear O'Keefe, but she's writing as Kristen Bear. Agatha Arch is afraid of everything. This will have you laughing. Look at that fabulous and hilarious cover. This will have you laughing from page 1. So Hannah and I cannot wait for you to hear Agatha Arch is Afraid of Everything. Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. ET, right here on First Chapter Fun. And we will, of course, see you then. So until then, stay safe, stay kind, and we love you so much. See you next time.